How's your Duolingo?
Muy bien. Muy bien. Muy bien.
I'm gonna be honest.
Muy bien.
You're not inspiring a lot of confidence right now. Your Spanish does not make me think you can rescue me in a hostage situation, and that's the proof I need right now if you want this plan to happen.
Okay, this episode is made possible by our therapy partners, Dirty B, Myra, and Ticket. From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, and real therapists. You can submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. Broadcasting from wherever Jim can use his spirit points. That's Dr. Jim. That's Whitney. I'm Nick. It's time for some Pod Therapy.
I mean, Reno's reachable. I just do that.
No.
That's north of Las Vegas.
That's true, too. And Reno is also so much worse than everything else that we've talked about.
Yes, I would rather go to any other place.
Nick knows Reno
I'll tell you
well.
right now, the contender is Miami. I could see myself saying, let's do Miami. That's a nice beach experience. Plus, I hate my birthday because it's the winter and it's the week after Thanksgiving, Whitney. It's very bad.
So
it's
why would you eliminate the Caribbean?
I don't know where it is. And
it's just beaches.
Concerning.
It's just beaches.
Christ.
A lot of places
you don't know
are
where
beaches.
A lot of those cities
India's just beaches.
Have you ever
India?
heard of...
Wait, shut the fuck up.
Okay,
Did you just say that India is just beaches?
Yeah. That's why Columbus got lost. Because he thought he got there. Because it's a beach.
You are an idiot.
That's all a beach.
I feel like at least
It's
once
a
every
huge
episode
beach.
Jacob says.
There's an ocean named after it. Clearly, it's a beach. It's a big beach.
There are beaches in India, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not debating the fact that beaches
my
exist
cheeks hurt.
in India.
Yes. We're on the same page.
It's not just beaches.
Yeah, it's
India is
mostly
enormous.
beaches. Well, I'm sure they have other stuff, but don't they have like a mountain or something?
Lots of them.
Yeah, they got a tall one. But other than that, the beaches.
Some say that it's a continent.
It's a continent?
The beaches of India.
Nothing can be proven.
Yeah.
Beaches of India. Okay, listeners, we're trying to figure out what we're going to do with Jim's spirit points. The proposed...
Jim is like...
Patreon.com/therapy.
Seething
You can learn all about it.
What has been proposed is I think, $25.
These are the regular listeners. They don't know about your shenanigans.
Oh,
I know.
there's a lot of
Patreon.com/therapy.
to them.
Go check it out.
Yeah.
It's Nick's gambit to get me to blow all my spirit points on a raffle for my birthday where listeners submit tickets and get to pick where I go.
Here's the thing.
Which is
I'll tell you what this
terrifying.
actually is. Jim just described this as Nick's gambit.
Yeah.
What this actually is Nick, Jacob, and Whitney trying our damnedest to help Jim in two ways. Two ways. There are two ways
send me to murder
that we're
places.
being helpful here.
How are you supposed to thicken your skin? You don't go to the murder
Is
places.
to send Jim to an interesting place that he will experience and I'm sure have a wonderful time.
Yeah.
And two is to get him out from under the thumb of Big Spirit so that he can get rid of his stupid Spirit Airlines credit card.
You bring up
you.
a really good point
We're
that has
just
not
helping
been
you.
discussed, because if I could finally be done.
All
Have you-
we're
have
doing
you
is
cut up your
helping
card
you out.
yet?
You know what? God, that is such a strong
I
argument.
don't know what we need to do. We're even throwing in a PS5.
If I could get out of this, if this honestly got me out, I would close that card on the way. Wherever I'm supposed to.
I
go.
would honestly do this like next week.
Just to blow the points.
I would like
get out.
if I just had a shit ton of airline miles that I just wanted to get rid of, just to get rid of this credit card. If I was in your situation, I would be begging. I would say, pick a place. I'm going to take this weekend. Here's 3 days.
Blow them off.
I'm going somewhere. You guys decide where I'm going.
I have 50,000 spirit points. Not likely to be much more by the time this weekend would come. So we would also be a factor. If anybody's going to buy a raffle ticket,
we got to make a decision
price
tonight.
yet to be determined.
Yeah, I don't want to put you on the spot, but
You just
tonight.
did. 100% on the spot.
Yes. So I guess
But he doesn't want to.
I don't want to.
But
I kind of do.
Nick, if you asked me after the show to go to a new bar, I'd be very scared. Like, I'm just not ready for this. I don't do change.
I know, and that's why we need to do this. This is for your own good.
I don't think this is it. The only
going to
Jacob's the only one
Cancun.
making any damn sense is getting me out of the spirit racket.
Going to Cancun, the most expensive flight is 35,000 points.
I've been locked in the spirit bullshit for
you can go twice
4 years. No, that's
he can
one
take a
way.
guest.
Yeah.
That's probably one way.
Oh, that might be one way.
For one person.
That is, yes.
Yeah.
That's the most expensive flight.
But the other 20,000
So
points to get home, probably correct, because it's usually cheaper to get back. So it's budgetable. But that's another. Okay, so I have 3 potential strikes. Nothing north of Vegas. Nothing
Jim
that's
nailed it.
not
About
owned by the
25,000 to
United
get back.
States. Yeah, it's usually the math.
You can also do like
and it would have to
19.5.
fit the budget of the points because I'm not paying out of pocket. I'm also not bringing a goddamn bag. I'm bringing a purse or one of those bags that we figured out fits inside the bin.
Immerse.
Great.
Yeah.
No, I think again, I'm willing to negotiate on the nothing north and nothing outside of the country except for Mexico and the Caribbean.
Mexico's scary.
Those are the best places. Like honestly, if you propose that to me, I'd say yes.
Of course you would. You've gone to Ireland and stuff.
If you just give me a trip to Cancun next week, I'll just go.
Yeah.
Look, I kind of think that sounds nice, but the scariness thing is a big deal.
What do you imagine happening? Like,
I'm gonna
play
get
this
abducted
out,
like the
but
little
no,
girl
no,
in
no,
Man
play
on
it out.
Fire.
Literally, you land at the airport,
abducted.
and they just what? How do they abduct you?
Have you seen the movie Taken?
It's been a while. They were under the bed at their home in France,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
not.
You're much
starts
That
bigger
was
than
the
those
France,
little girls, right?
Yeah, but
Also,
people
I
can
don't-
size me up pretty quick.
I
and
don't
like,
know if you're
this dude is. I'm gonna steal this man. Like this is not hard.
This guy
Hey,
looks like he
you,
has wealthy family
get in
members.
the back of my car. Okay.
I don't know if you're. How do I say this? I don't know if you're what they're looking for.
Oh.
Okay,
So you don't think I could be part of the underground sex
I
trade?
don't think so. I'm sorry.
That's the most
you'd be
hurtful
part of the-
thing
I
you've
think
ever
it's-
said
I think
to me.
it's more likely that you
I'm
get
done.
drafted by the military.
We've
than
been
it is-
over this.
I know.
I've
And
aged
that's-
out.
Exactly.
Nobody wants me anymore.
Exactly. And
I'm
I
not
still-
good enough to die. I'm not young and sexy enough for Uncle Sam to sacrifice for some oil war.
Yes.
This is bullshit.
That's correct.
I've never felt more worthless.
And even that is more likely than you being abducted for sex trafficking.
I
don't
that's
think
just
you're eligible
hurtful.
for the
You're just being mean.
the below
That's what
ground
this
sex
is.
trade or the above ground sex trade.
The Bogota sex trade. Who knows
I don't think you're
what's
available.
going on?
I don't think you're good for just like the regular sex trade.
Look, you haven't seen me
I think
try.
there's willing
Okay, I could
participants
gussy
of
up a
your
little
age.
bit. I could put on something nice.
I feel like I've seen you try.
I got some nice shoes at home. I could put on some nice. Maybe I get out of the airport and I'm wearing some nice shoes.
You got some nice wingtips.
Well, then they'll
No.
take your shoes. They aren't going to take you.
Well, no, I'm
Sweater
gussying up
vest.
to be selected as a prostitute. That's where we're going with this. Patreon.com/therapy to hear the rest of the scheme.
Yeah.
No promises.
It's gonna be great.
gonna be
Raffles
fun.
to be determined.
Can't
I
wait.
don't know what's going to happen with that. We've also got questions about therapy. Should probably answer those. First question: retraining my friends around mental health. From Taylor.
Send them on a trip.
Send them on a trip. Hey, Pod Therapy crew. Recently, I've been hanging out with a group of friends that includes a specific person. Let's call him Gaston. Whitney's my Disney buddy.
No.
No one. Come on, let's just do the
Fights like
whole.
Gaston.
No one fights like Gaston. Come on, let's do the whole thing. Though Gaston is supportive, friendly, and honestly rather liberal and forward-thinking, he comes across as crass and old-fashioned when talking about things like mental health.
Like Jim.
Also that. No, it's not my job to fix him, but I'd like to have a conversation to explain how he's coming across and that I know I'm not the only one with an issue. Largely, he appropriates mental illness in broad strokes as less serious than it is. He refers to depression or major depressive disorder as the SADS, anxiety as unstable, etc. When we talk about these things in relation to someone specific that he knows, he takes it seriously and is supportive, but while still using these phrases. I'm not entirely sure what the best strategy is to talk about this. I can get defensive, aggressive, intense around treating people with mental illness as people. When I try to correct him in the moment, he brushes it off with a, I know, I'm just joking, or something along those lines, and continues using this language moving forward. There are quite a few people in this community that have different things that they struggle with on the mental health spectrum, and I know I'm not the only one miffed by his attitude. However, I don't want to babysit an adult or feed into anything of responsibility for his actions. I'd like to take an educational tact without being too aggressive, i.e. assertive, but with a vagina. Thanks. Signed, assertive, with a vagina.
Nice. So is the
Assertive
person
vaginas.
the person's not actually older. They're just using those older phrases.
Yeah. They're saying they don't like how Gaston talks about mental health with this sort of diminutive terminology like the SADS or unstable. But they do describe Gaston as overall being a pretty progressive person and really not a dick, not walking around being silly, but seems a little off base in the way they try to talk about mental health.
Perhaps a little dismissive.
Yeah.
But you know what? I kind of struggle reading that because part of me was kind of reading that and thinking, I intentionally downplay mental health language to make it more approachable, right? Like I know when to put on my clinical hat and talk about it, but I'm happy to normalize some of these experiences by de-diagnosifying them, right? Like I would be comfortable in the right company to call something the SADS. But I think from the writer's letter, I'm gathering that the context is it sounds a little insulting and a little dismissive because we're talking about somebody we know.
Yeah. I was going to say maybe if you didn't know the whole story, you wouldn't want to jump to like, oh, you're feeling down or you haven't gotten out of bed for a few days or something. You don't want to be like, well, you have major depressive disorder.
Somebody has a case of the Mondays.
So I can hear that. But if it sounds like this writer is saying that the friend Gaston is saying that people who have these actual diagnoses he's referring to that as those kind of
that's the only part that I don't understand from the letter is like is this person talking to people that are saying like, oh, I've been in therapy all day and here's what I've been in therapy for. He says, oh, you got the SADS.
Yeah,
like that's one thing, or is it just kind of general?
Right, like yeah, I've been feeling kind of, or it's been hard for me to get out of the house today. It's like, oh, you got the SADS?
Right.
Like, what's the context?
I agree with that in the sense that it's like if it's talking directly to someone who's experiencing it, that seems on a whole nother level.
It's kind of attacky.
Yeah.
And very, I would agree with like the descriptive of just dismissive of just kind of being like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. Oh, you're sad today. Okay. As opposed to like if it's just this individual talking to you, then I feel like we have got a different conversation because then it's just really about you've told him once, you've set this boundary, and they're just continuing to cross it.
Yeah, especially that's the part that gets me. It's like I've tried to call them out in the moment, which well done, because that can be hard sometimes. So to actually step up and take the initiative to do that, to be assertive, and them just respond, I know, I'm just joking, or something like that, is even more dismissive. It's like, no, you're the one overreacting here. I'm just joking. It's what? No.
Yeah. Which is also a tricky like question of like shoe on the other foot, because if we were all socializing and somebody did try to make a joke and they were sort of being playful, their heart's in the right place, but we didn't care for the way they phrased something, it came off a little off. At some point, if I try to correct that quickly becomes a me thing, right? Where it's like, I don't need to police you. Like, you're grown up, you're stubbing your toe in public. That's on you. Like, if it's off-putting to others, let it be.
I think,
something.
I think if it's something that bothers you, I think you can say that. Yeah. I guess, and the other thing too, that like, if I was in that position, if like you were saying something derogatory towards a group of people and it was bothering me, I would also think not only is it bothering me, but it would probably bother other people as well. And so I should probably tell you this so that you don't repeat this in other company.
Would you say it in a friendly way though? Like
no.
No. Yeah.
To most people, yes.
To most people,
I could see you doing that, like, hey, but like privately.
No,
that's
like,
what I was going to say.
Can I chat with you for a second?
I would probably say something like, hey, when you say this, this isn't kind of the preferred way to
I know you mean no harm, but
and you know, if you say this in some groups, it's not going to be good for you. So I probably want you to break the habit of saying this. Yeah. And probably refer to it this way. I would encourage you to do that.
Okay.
I would try to be nice about it as much as I possibly can.
Which actually doesn't sound too bad. I mean, especially if you're like, look, I know you're not big into the mental health scene. I am. I listen to podcasts about it. Yeah. So like, I think about this. people in this culture,
I'm
we
a
don't
listener
like
of Pod Therapy, so
I don't know
I
if
feel
you've
like
heard
I'm
of
kind
it.
like,
It's kind of the big
Profesh.
fucking deal.
I mean, think of it. It's the same basic conversation that we had with you, Jim, with all the racial slurs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when we were like, hey,
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
we understand where your heart is.
of course, it was
Yeah.
like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
was, yeah.
Xenophobia.
I told you guys. I was doing
Patreon.com/there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was doing a crossword, okay? A blank in one's armor. I didn't know what
Right.
it was, but you guys educated me, and I appreciate it.
There you go.
Next time I won't shout that in
Yeah.
Chinatown.
I think even acknowledging, like, oh, I know we brought this up before and you said you were just joking, but it doesn't come across that way and it can feel
That's fair.
dismissive. Just say
Yeah.
that, this is
While
how it
approaching
feels.
with the benefit of the doubt. Like, I know
Yeah.
your intentions are totally great. I know you're an advocate. Sometimes this pushes me a little bit away, and I know that's not your intention.
Yeah.
That's why I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Because I know that's not your intention.
Yeah.
But I get that vibe, and
And
it
if they
just is unhelpful.
Yeah,
language.
and if they still don't change, then I do see what Jim's saying, where it's like, all right, if you have really approached it like every different which way, and it's very clear that you are kind of uncomfortable in those situations, you've shared that with your friend, and they still do it and aren't changing, then it's like you just have to adjust your own behavior.
Yeah.
And like, okay, well, you're not a place that I'm going to open up to about mental health.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I think just that's the reality of just friend groups in general, right? Is like one person will make this joke and like that's not your jam, and maybe in a different kind of social context you'd find that offensive or whatever, but you just love them for them and you're like, you know what? It is what it is. Like let them get that
Yeah.
phrase out, and then they're done, and like we're done here. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's probably good advice, but yeah, I mean, I appreciate, Ryder, that you take it seriously. I appreciate that you're an advocate. I guess the only gentle, and again, entirely a spirit of love nudge that I'd give you on this is just keeping in mind that if people are talking about mental health and they're being a little bit diminutive about it or light-handed with it, but they're not discounting it or disrespecting it, sometimes that is helpful, and sometimes it does come from a good place. I've actually really liked when people come up with playful ways to describe mental health stuff, and I don't take it as disrespectful, even though I understand clinical diagnostics. So, like, a good example of this, I saw something the other day, was talking about Generation Z, and there was like some TikTok where somebody's like, Generation Z is going to be like, not understanding mental health. And like somebody jumped in, like a millennial, and they were like, really? You don't think Generation Z is comfortable talking about mental health?
Generation Z is after millennials, right?
Yeah. Youngest people around.
Yeah.
And they were like, the speaker was like, they invented the phrase mentee B. Like,
Mental breakdown.
They're talking about it. They're very comfortable. And I appreciate that. He's like, yeah, that's right. Like, they've made it a thing. And a lot of that was a mental breakdown.
Mental breakdown.
Yeah, like, I just had myself a mentee B. And they're like, oh, shit, okay, are you okay?
That's
I'm
young
better
folk
now.
now.
Yeah, mentee B. But yeah, like, sometimes I think being sort of tongue-in-cheek, I mean, this show is very tongue-in-cheek about a lot of things, and we know how to pivot and get very serious about certain things. And we intentionally choose to make some of this more approachable and humanized and less pathologized by sometimes adding a little grain of salt. And so, I don't know. Again, I don't know what Gaston's up to, but I just want to leave room for that.
I do see that there is kind of a gray area there too.
Yeah.
Where it's almost kind of like if somebody suffering with the condition nicknames it themselves and calls it that is probably different than if somebody who's outside that circle
That's a
labels
good
it
point.
that way.
Like,
Well,
I
yeah,
had
good
the
point.
SADS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if I have major depressive disorder, and like, how you doing, Jim? Oh, well, this season's always really tough. Yeah, you got the SADS. I want to believe that your intentions are good and that you're using a playful way to encourage me to open up. Like that conversation's fine.
Also,
but if you're being dismissive, you're like, oh, here comes Jim's. He's got the SADS. Like, fuck you. I have major depressive disorder. It's
as
not
opposed
a joke.
to somebody who has major depressive disorder being asked how they feel, and they're like,
I
dealing
got
with the
SADS.
SADS.
Like the mentee B thing is from that angle. It's like, I had mentee B last week. It's like,
no, I mean,
you
intention
okay?
matters. Intention always matters. If I say to someone, oh, you got the SADS, and I'm just being genuine and I'm asking you, like, are you not feeling well?
Right.
If nothing else, that's 7 fewer syllables than major depressive disorder.
Yeah, I've given you just a quicker way to respond that isn't as intimidating.
That's it.
And doesn't invite you to have to actually clinically diagnose yourself. Like, we both know what I'm asking.
And also, if a layperson, like if any of the three of you walk up to someone and they say, and you're having a conversation, and they say, "Oh, I'm not feeling, I'm not feeling well. I'm feeling sad," and you say, "Oh, do you have major depressive disorder?" That means something different coming from you, from the three of you, than if I walk up to someone and say, "Do you have major depressive disorder?"
Right.
Because they're going to look at me and say, "Well, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
You're just an idiot like me. So why, I'm not going to have this."
What are you trying to ask?
Yeah. Like that's almost
everything.
odder.
Context matters.
I think for me to ask someone like to phrase it in that way, more of a clinical way.
If you were asking that, I think their interpretation would be, were you ever diagnosed with this?
Right.
And it's like, oh, are you just asking about my health history?
Right.
Like, that's still an odd thing to ask.
It's still weird.
Unless the
in that
context
context,
lends
it's
itself.
almost less odd to say, "Do you have the SADS?"
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like Gaston could have a well-meaning, well-intentioned approach
Intention matters
to
a lot.
normalize
I agree
it.
with intention.
Yeah, but again, I don't know the
I don't know.
Gaston's
I feel like
intention, and
you're-
the writer doesn't like it. So
Right.
Yeah.
they're up close.
And we're not trying to build an escape route here for Gaston either. Like,
Well, I'm a
Yeah.
fan of Gaston. I'll be honest.
you like muscles.
He eats
Gaston's
five
achieved
dozen
some
eggs.
things.
5 dozen eggs every morning.
When
What were you gonna say?
a lad, I ate 4 dozen eggs
I was
every
gonna
morning
say-
to help me get strong.
With intention, it's so tricky because I feel like when you're in the throes of some mental health issues, and in the process of dealing with those, feeling like minimized can be a little bit. That's a sensitive area.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I hear you when you say intention matters, and it does in general, but from like thinking about like friends in general who have struggled with maybe like depressive symptoms, if they had a really good friend of theirs that they know was meaning well when they said, "Well, yeah, that's why I love to go work out and get exercise and like go outside for runs," and you're like, "Yeah, I go to the gym every day and like I'm still depressed."
Right.
Like now that person's like, "Well, I'm just not going to talk to them about it," which again is your own choice. But I think that Gaston should just be aware that he's free to act how he wants, but people around him may just choose to not open up.
Well, I
about
think
that.
and I think that's kind of like, if we want to help Gaston, then I think, we bring attention to it. Say,
Yeah.
hey, this is, some people are going to react this way to it.
Yeah.
If
Here's what you're
he's
saying, and here's how it's being interpreted.
Exactly. And if he is aware of that
Yeah.
and wants to continue to do it,
Right.
and it's like, well, I kind of did my part.
Yeah.
And I let this person know.
Yep.
And if it bothers me, then I start putting distance between me and this individual.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know. I always worry too about like how much are we policing our own allies, and like are we then just driving more people away from it? If he is supportive in every other way, and it's this issue, not to say that I don't want to belittle it and say that it's not important the way he speaks about things, but I mean,
Right size it.
And I'll push back just a skosh against Whitney,
Yeah.
and that is to say, like,
Scoosh.
when I say intention matters on these things, it does. I mean, it has to matter. And then if anyone takes what I say and interprets it in a different way than the way that I meant it, and the way that my intention was, at that point, it is kind of on the other person a little bit as well. Like, and now I have to be responsible for what I'm communicating. And so if you tell me, "Hey, here's what you're communicating. When you say this, here is what I'm interpreting this as," and I say, "Oh, thank you for telling me that's not what I meant by this at all."
Right.
Yeah, but
That's the feedback loop.
You have
That's what
to have to
want.
work together a little bit on that as well.
That's the
Absolutely.
That's it.
Yeah.
yeah.
I
So
agree
when
with
we
that.
want Jim to go to Columbia, our intention is good.
Yeah, they matter.
We want Jim to have a wonderful time
We do.
and burn these spirit points.
Yes.
Slide them up.
God, can you imagine just to be free?
Just a credit card that you could
Free
use the
Jim.
points on that card
start that hashtag.
for like Delta.
The greatest gift
Free
I could
Jim
ever
That's what
spirit.
we're gonna call it.
Free Jim.
Set Jim's spirit
this-
free.
Free.
You
Oh,
could use
set Jim's
those points on
spirit free.
Qantas
There.
Air.
Oh my God. I could just be done.
Yes, I love it.
I would go buy a Southwest card, I think. Well, I guess you don't
I
buy
think
them. You just get one.
Sign
Yeah.
up.
You
sign
buy
up.
them. Yeah, you fucking buy them.
I would cancel the spirit card
Yes.
the next day.
Set Jim's free.
Because
Just
Spirit
free. I
cancel
love that.
spirit now.
But no, because if he cancels it, he loses the
I
points.
lose
Well,
all the
after-
points. That's how they get you.
But I thought you were saying the next day after you bought the
As soon as
Southwest
I
card.
burned
Oh, yeah.
all the points and I was safely home,
Yeah.
because I don't trust canceling the card while I'm abroad because they'll be like, hey,
That'd be
fuck you.
Yeah, they
Now
would
you
definitely
stay in Bogota.
Yeah,
I'm not
you're
trying
never
to do
coming
that.
back. Yeah.
Great question, my friend.
Absolutely.
Thank you
That
for
is.
writing in about Gaston. And you know what? Thank you for having an assertive vagina. We on this show are promoters of assertive vaginae. Is that the plural of vaginas?
Sure is.
It is now.
Feels right. We're going to take a quick
Feels
break.
right.
Feels
And-
right.
Vagineum.
It's not a good.
When we come back, we are discussing cannabis
Conjugated.
and CBT. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Jake Schneider, Judy Schneider, Leon Kassab, Carolyn Albert, Sammy Scoop, Sarah Smith, Mike Helm, Darren Cunningham, Matt and Lisa Tangeman, and Mrs. Hot Dog Scoop. Would you like to sponsor the show? Become a therapy producer at patreon.com/therapy. We got some trivia sent in to us by Myra.
Myra.
Hello, life coach and psychotherapist. I'm currently vacationing in Vienna.
Oh, the hot dog place.
Yeah,
I had some of that this
That's it.
weekend.
Which country, Jim? She actually wrote that in there. Which country, Jim?
That was Chicago.
Vienna, Chicago. Correct.
Nailed it.
And took a tour of the Sigmund Freud Museum.
I don't think it's Chicago anymore.
It was rather interesting as the museum is more of an homage to Freud than a walkthrough of his house, as most of his belongings were moved to London where they fled the Nazis.
Oh, shit.
I found a couple interesting facts that would make for fun trivia. I hope you find them interesting as I did.
Oh boy.
Freud,
For just a second, I forgot this was trivia, and I thought this was just a letter about Vienna for some reason.
Just Freud.
Jacob's like, I'm ready.
Also,
Like,
quick
Coach
side
Jacob.
note.
about Vienna.
I know.
She posted photos on the Discord of her museum stuff.
Nice.
Freud. It was really amazing. It
very
was really, really cool.
okay. Freud is known for a few features: his glasses, felt hats, cigars, and his beard. While living in Vienna, he had a barber shop by his house to tidy his beard. How often did he stop by the barber shop?
I feel like he kept that thing trim. I think it's really trim.
There are multiple choices.
When you're trying to keep your beard really tight,
Mm-hmm.
Jacob, how often are you attending to the beard? Do you barber the beard or do you do it at home?
I'm not going to answer this question that will just lead you to the correct answer in this trivia, Jim.
Son of a bitch.
I'm not going to give you the answer.
Just throwing me down. All right. Who's go? So were you doing the 2-1 rule?
Sure.
Do you see the multiple choice?
No, I can't until I highlight them.
All right. That's
I'll
fair.
go for 2. Anybody else going for 2?
It's a unit of time, we think.
I'll go, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would.
How
I
often?
would think so.
All right.
I don't
So
know how else
clearly,
this
I
is
we
guess-
playing out.
have the advantage. Whitney's at the disadvantage.
In fortnights.
So we make her go
It's like
first.
5 inches. I don't know.
right.
Whatever that is.
Whitney has to go first because she doesn't have a beard. Only one.
Oh,
in this
no.
room
Is
without a
Whitney?
beard.
Are you going for 2 points? Or are you going to wait for the question or the
I'm
options?
torn between 2 options in my head, so I kind of want to wait
I'm
for
torn.
the.
right.
Okay, I'm gonna
Wait.
wait. Yeah.
Okay.
Jim, you going for 2 points?
Why
You
do I have
wait.
to go next?
If Jacob
'Cause
says one of
you're-
my answers, then I'm gonna.
I mean, I'm going for it. I'm going to give an answer.
Yeah,
I'm going to give an
answer.
answer too.
I think he goes every week.
Oh, so you're going for 2.
I'm
And you're
taking.
going weekly.
I'm going for the 2-pointer.
Okay.
Balls in the air. I say once a week.
What you got, Nick?
I'm going to say daily.
Me too. I'm on daily as well.
Oh,
Okay.
We're all going for 2s, and then Whitney's saving it
Whitney's
for 1.
saving
I'm saving it.
Okay. Our options are daily,
Uh-huh.
Oh,
every
shit.
3 days,
Oh fuck.
weekly,
All right.
or a fortnight,
Yes, the fortnight isn't there.
which is every 2 weeks.
Approximately.
Man, I was torn.
So you're
between-
weekly, right?
I'm sticking to weekly.
Well, no, you're definitely sticking there.
Yeah,
but
you don't have a choice.
But you're
I'm honorable, Jacob.
you selected weekly.
Read the question
chosen
again.
to it.
It's just how often he
How
goes
often
to the
did he
barber
go to his barber shop for his beard
for a
maintenance?
beard
Yeah.
for beard maintenance. So
For
this
his-
isn't just like
Or
shaving.
shave and it is it's not just
I was
shaving.
gonna
Shave
say,
and
like-
a haircut.
Like, because shaving I could see daily.
The wording is to tidy his beard. So
That implies
That's
he is quite
ambiguous.
fastidious. He was also German, so keep that
I
in mind.
know. I was originally torn between 1 and 2 weeks, but the daily, gosh.
I think it also depends if he was seeing his mother that week.
I'm going to say 2 weeks, even though I don't think I'm right. But I'm going with 2
Okay.
weeks. A fortnight.
But how hot was
It is
Mother
daily.
Freud?
Yeah.
Shit. Daily. Come on.
The answer to Jim's question is I trim it and shave every day.
Every day?
Or I might not
Not
trim
just
it.
shave every day.
But you
yeah.
asked like if I'm trying to keep it looking nice
Yeah.
and
Okay.
tight my beard.
Huh.
Then that's a
You'll
I'm
hit it
trimming
every
I'm hitting
day.
it with the trimmer every day.
Damn,
I'm like
son.
once every 4 days, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Are you
I'll
a daily,
swing by
are you a daily shaver?
the barber once a
No.
week.
You're non-bearded?
Really?
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, I'm a daily shaver.
I'll let him clean me up once a week. That's the best I've ever been. So before that, I would get to like ZZ Top and then just buzz it off again. So
One of Freud's treatment interests was the use of cocaine as a treatment for what?
yes, it was.
I am also interested in this.
boredom. Being a loser. That's what it was. Being lame at parties.
Let's see, it's Freud, so it's not having sex with your parents.
I'll go last since I know the answer. No, he was into the whole. He thinks everybody wants to have sex with their mom.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
Freud.
That's Freud.
Yeah.
Okay.
Freud's the guy who's definitely got the hots for his
I
mom.
feel like I have an idea, but
I was getting confused with Oedipus,
wait.
which is just the story about having sex with
the
your mom.
Oedipus complex.
Yeah.
The edible complex is Freud, though.
Yeah, okay.
She's all
I
Oedipus.
have to wait
and
till
I've
the.
waited for so
you say edible?
long. Sigmund, can't you see?
Anyway,
You're
I'm gonna
just
wait
not
for the
guy
options.
for
Me
me.
too.
Options.
No, it
Options.
might be wrong.
Options.
You're locking it in though,
Oh
right?
no, I'll lock in now.
Okay. So what is it?
What was the question?
No.
It was why did he give people
No.
cocaine? Melancholia.
Okay.
Let's see if that's an
Sigmund's
option.
Mom.
Is it
Whoa.
hysteria?
Fuck, it was hysteria. Sigmund's mom.
I was gonna say
Libido.
That too.
Libido.
I mean, what doesn't it fix, honestly?
Yeah.
Drug addiction or neurosis.
God damn it. Mine wasn't even on there.
It was not.
I'm gonna guess. I'm just gonna randomly guess one here. I'm gonna go with A.
You know what? I'm going to go with A, hysteria as well.
I think I am
fucking
too.
damn
yeah.
it.
That's hysteria. Okay.
Fuck
Yeah.
you, Sigmund
A
Freud.
hysteria.
Let's just unveil this and let's see what it is. Drug addiction.
Yeah, you're all idiots.
We're all wrong.
Fell for my
I hope it
clever
would be.
trap. This will fix your drug addiction. What was worse? Like, what was he treating with coke?
What was the real answer?
Cannabis.
Doctor.
Drug addiction.
Well, you know what? Now,
Doctor, I've been drinking way too much coffee.
now isn't it
Try
like?
this.
Well, nowadays isn't it like? Well, okay, if you want to quit like smoking cigarettes,
Yeah.
here's some sugar.
Yeah,
and you're
yeah.
like,
Sugar and
eventually
Coke.
they'll be like, what?
Get into cigars. This guy. Speaking of drugs, our next question is titled Cannabis and CBT from Ellie. Hi there. I had a terrible teletherapy session, and I wanted to ask you guys and gal what you think of what happened. For a little backstory, I'm 29, no kids, and have a partner for the last 2 years whom I live with. The reason I seek therapy is mostly for my anxiety, but there is a lot to unpack once I finally meet a therapist worth exploring those things with. I started this session with a brand new therapist, an older man. I feel like I can ramble and go down rabbit holes a lot if I'm unchecked during a session, so I asked this therapist if we could initially start working on my relationship with my mother and unpack from there. He obliged and started asking me the typical questions: how old I am, where I live, etc., etc. Once we got to the part that I'm a frequent, maybe too frequent, cannabis user. I'm not delusional that my cannabis use probably isn't helping in some aspects of my life, but it surely does not help me in others. Okay, that was phrased right. It is medically legal in my state, and I use it medicinally. I also work in the field as a cultivator. Well, once he learned this was the only thing he would talk about, and told me there could be absolutely no healing or working through my problems if I'm still using cannabis, because I admittedly am dependent upon it. He immediately treated me like I was some crazed drug addict, asked how my partner deals with it like I'm some dysfunctional addict. He told me it was just like being addicted to alcohol, which I totally disagree with. What do you guys and gal think of this? I was pretty offended and feel very disheartened and somehow worse than before. With some of you coming from the world of addiction, I was really curious what you think. Thank you for taking your time to address this. Signed, Ellie. Ellie, let me tell you about cocaine. This is how
Better than marijuana.
This is how the classics fix this.
That's how we.
problem.
That's how we.
I mean, I'll
treat
tell you
drug
right now,
addiction.
doesn't sound like this is Dr. Parties.
Doug is boring.
So this is an interesting question because it's been our policy on the show that we tend not to jump in and second guess with what your therapist,
But we
what the
about to.
writers We're going to because because we're 300 episodes into this, and
fuck it.
Policies are made to be broken.
It's something hard. I don't want to limp away from this wreck.
I like saw an eclipse move and heard Jim's voice. Fuck it.
Fuck that.
No, so I mean, okay. So here's the caveat to this. We don't know. We're hearing this just from you.
Sure.
Yeah,
we're hearing your side of this. Maybe there was something else that happened in this session that sparked your therapist's interest.
Yeah, maybe you were smoking while you were talking to the therapist.
Maybe that
you want a hit, man? No?
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, my mom's crazy.
That's the eighth time you've asked me if I want to hit.
Yeah. Maybe you didn't even realize you were talking to his plant in his office. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff.
A lot of Cheetos on that sweater.
Yeah. Where's your vending machine, man?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, there could be a lot that we don't know about.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
that's really fair.
We definitely want to jump in and just rip your therapist to threads, but to pieces. But we need to understand that.
Yeah,
we'll rip his tweed jacket to threads.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We'll rip those patches right off. So here's the thing that stuck out to me, interestingly, was saying like, okay, so you're using cannabis. This is no different than being addicted to alcohol, which I thought was kind of a really strange comparison, considering how many of our clients will come in for therapy that drink that aren't alcoholics.
Oh, right, yeah.
You know, so it's kind of a really odd connection that the therapist didn't make that connection that like, yeah, just because you're using cannabis does not mean that you meet criteria for a cannabis use disorder.
Right.
In the same way that, you know,
if you have a glass of wine with dinner.
Right.
Yeah, I'll have wine with dinner.
Well, they said they were dependent on it. They self-identified.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They did.
But like, I would
that.
ask, like, what do you mean by dependent? Like,
well, yeah, that is a good follow-up question.
Some people might be like, yeah, I'm dependent on it because I use it every week, and you're like, what? Or like once a week. Or
right.
whatever.
I'll give the therapist probably a nudge, or the point on that one.
Sure.
Because I'll assume that they probably during the eval said, "How often do you smoke? Holy smoke, you smoke a lot." I think that you're probably dependent on this, and you're not going to make any progress so long as this predominant thing is in your life.
Yeah. And the writer said that they're dependent, said to us that they're dependent.
They are, yeah.
So possibly also said that to the doctor.
Good. So we all agree Nick's an idiot. Okay, glad we got that out of the way.
Okay.
Now what, Nick? No, just
yeah, no, I'll just sit the next one out. But I do want to say, though, that the amount doesn't, there is no criteria in the DSM-5 where amount equals dependence.
Right, yeah.
Right.
It is lack of control over the amount.
Right.
That's in there.
This brings an interesting question to my mind. What would any of the three of you do if someone came in and said, I am dependent on alcohol? And the first thing you would ask, I assume, would be, how often do you drink? How much and how often do you drink?
No.
It would be on the list, though, right? It'd be an early-ish question.
I'm interested.
So the questions, the things that I'm going to ask is I'm going to ask age at first use, route of admission, amount, frequency, patterns over time, and date of last
route
use.
of admission on alcohol? So whether they're keystering the alcohol?
People do.
Just thinking,
but no, that's standard for any substance.
Yeah.
How much vodka do you take up your ass?
That's a tampon.
I mean, not
general.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't be gross, Whitney.
Happens.
You're saying
no.
this like people
That's
don't
a thing.
do it.
Yeah.
Nick, she's
I'm like,
being
that's
gross.
the thing.
It's called butt chugging.
Wow.
We already talked earlier.
Well,
about
yeah, I'm
periods,
agreeing with that.
so.
She's talking about like tampons and stuff.
Also
weird
that
stuff.
There's that
That's just
definitely
gross.
Yeah.
I
don't even think that's that
xenophobic
abnormal.
and sexist.
You're
I
ignorant.
don't think the gender of the person using the tampon even comes into
It
the
doesn't.
discussion.
That can go in
'Cause you
other
can definitely put that tampon
orifices.
anywhere.
Yeah.
True. All right. Solid point.
But if my thought is, if someone came to you and said, "I believe I have alcohol use disorder,"
Yeah.
and they said that the amount that they drank was less than kind of normal, kind of like the amount that you would normally see in somebody coming to you and saying this, would you have a thought on that? Would you even pursue that? So
Yeah,
like,
I
mean,
care.
if they said, I drink every other day, and I have 3 or 4 drinks a day every other day. That's probably less than your average person who's going to therapy for alcohol abuse. Would that come into the discussion at all?
So my follow-up question would be very similar to what Whitney said, which is like, okay, you said you're dependent on it. What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
unpack
paint me a picture of what dependency means to you and how you know you're dependent.
Right. Because one guy might say, I have 4 beers a day. I start with one beer at 9 a.m., another beer at 10 a.m., another beer at 11 a.m., and another beer at 2 p.m., all of which while I'm driving for Uber.
Right.
And I'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
that's
You'd
the
say,
problem.
I get it.
Yeah, I get it.
Driving
Uber's
for
a
Uber in this
hard
town?
fucking job.
I get it.
But yeah, I don't like that you are taking high risk behavior. You're drinking despite
Of
negative
course.
consequences. Those are the things Nick's talking about, which is we are interested in quantity with any drug, but that's not the way we're grading.
Okay.
And this cuts both ways, right? Because we've both had people that have tried to, in their pre-contemplative state, in denial, they're like, I don't drink as much as Bob at the bowling alley.
Mm-hmm.
Bob's an alcoholic. I'm not Bob. And it's like, dude, it's not a fucking contest on, how many milliliters of alcohol.
Well, yeah, because as long as you can find one person to the right of you, then you're fine.
You're fine. There's always somebody worse.
But I think the other thing, too, is like, the other question that I would want to ask is what happens when you don't drink?
Yeah.
Because that's the telling sign.
Yeah.
If it's like, okay, yeah, if I don't drink, I notice about 6 hours after my last drink, I start to shake.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, that's
Physical
biological
dependency as well. Yeah.
If it's issue like, I start having really intense cravings to drink and I feel like I feel very anxious and like the room is spinning and I just can't focus on things. Okay, that's psychological dependence.
Yeah.
Right.
If it's like, well, I feel like I can't relate to people. I'm not very social. I go to a party, but I can't talk to people. Well, now that's social dependence. So it's kind of the biopsychosocial piece that you're kind of looking at for dependency.
Yeah, what role does it fill in your life?
Yeah.
Okay.
But in this situation, so we know that there's a lot of students and interns and colleagues as well that maybe don't specialize in this area, which is something I was talking to a student about recently, how rarely a lot of us in the field train in substance use.
Yeah.
And I have a little bit of an issue with that.
That's a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah, I think you and I have the same beef. Because
sure, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, a light bulb just went on in my head when you said that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Of
why
course.
wouldn't that be a thing?
Yes.
Well, it's really frustrating because Nevada's a very special state in this regard. Because Nevada,
So many
I don't
ways.
think is setting a lot of records for mental health. But one thing I've always actually been very proud of our state on is we have a more serious than most approach to substance use disorders and addictions in that we have a proper board that governs that license. We see it as a distinct discipline. It's treated with respect. And you need to prove yourself in order to earn that clinical licensure. And I've always really valued that because a lot of other states make it like a junior license or like something that doesn't really matter. Or just, are you licensed as a clinical social worker? Great. Feel free to treat drug addiction. And you get a lot of fucking people killed by
Really?
you don't know anything about it.
Well, and this is a big issue because
That's absurd.
It is absurd.
There's a big difference between scope and competence.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Because
Scope is a mouthwash.
Yes.
As
Agreed.
as an LCSW, which is a licensed clinical social worker,
Whitney.
you can treat drug and alcohol addiction, right?
You mean legally? You just mean like you're
It's-
allowed.
It's
You
within
can.
your
It's your
scope
scope.
of practice.
Yes.
However, if you really dig in and read the regulations, it would be the same for gambling. So an LCSW can treat gambling addiction okay?
Legally.
But if you
They are
actually
legally allowed to treat gambling addiction.
if you read the regulations, it says with demonstrated competence.
Right.
And that's the piece that people don't pay a whole lot of attention to because there are some folks that say, and I see the extremes on both ends.
Right.
So I see like some people who it's within their scope. So like, yep, I can do this. And they've got no formal training in it whatsoever.
Right.
Well, is there like, I don't know, an attachment, an appendices to this,
No.
whatever, that says like, here is what we mean by demonstrating
Kind of.
competence?
Not-
Well, kind
it
of,
doesn't-
because the
there's
ethical
no-
code will say something to that.
Yes,
effect.
but there's no actual like you need so many hours.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
not
Right,
spelled
that's what
out.
I'm asking.
You don't have to
It's-
train.
yeah.
It's not an
No,
addendum.
It's
like,
yeah. So it's not really spelled out what
You have
competence
to have gone
means.
to at least one night class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think
Not
what
even that.
competence
Yeah.
means is could you demonstrate it to the board?
Right.
Right.
Okay.
But the other thing, though, too, is I also see on the far extreme where there are people who do have the ability to do that and are probably very well educated and competent in being
Yeah.
able to treat it, but they don't want to.
Right.
Because they feel like, ooh, I don't like this. I don't feel
It's also a pain
I
in the
don't
ass.
feel confident about treating this.
Yeah,
So
right.
I want to kind of look the other way and not address it. I would rather they just talk to somebody else about it.
I see.
Right.
So
and
yeah,
that
it
comes
is
to
an
the
issue.
Spider-Man paradox. With great power comes great responsibility.
I don't think that's a paradox.
Uncle Ben died. do you
I don't think that's a paradox either.
That makes it a paradox, Jacob.
Okay, then.
No, I remember.
I've already called Jim an idiot once this episode. I can't do it twice.
You're over budget.
Gotta wait till next episode. I remember when I went to work for the big bad insurance company.
Boo.
I know.
They need to change that name.
I know. It's so
just
catchy,
the wolf.
though.
The mascot's just the wolf blowing.
It's smiling. Is that a smile?
Well, depending on who they're blowing.
Yeah. There it is.
One of the things they did in training us I worked for inpatient. And so when we were looking at withdrawal symptoms for different substances, that was something I literally went through a training on in my first month when you're just doing all your trainings, for any new job. It's like, here's how you use our systems. Here's how you do this. It was a whole thing on substance use and they quizzed you on it. And it was like really intense. And I learned a lot and I hadn't even attempted to work with people who were in any type of or needing substance use like treatment before that. But I learned a lot. And my coworker who was at LCSW had worked in substance use doing groups. And so she taught me a lot too, just about like substances mixing. And the biggest thing I learned was that alcohol is like one of the scariest things when you're withdrawing.
Right.
And we will always admit
It's one of the
them.
only ones you can die from.
Yes, that's why they don't even, when you come in, if you are intoxicated, and this isn't all insurance companies, but the ones I worked for at least, if you came in and you were intoxicated and you claimed to drink X amount every day, like a liter of vodka or whatever a day, we always assume you're lying and like underselling that. Like,
always 2 liters. Yeah.
And so you're just automatically admitted just for observation because you can die, and then the insurance company would be liable. But I had no idea before then. And I share that with friends, family, coworkers, whoever, because, and I'm almost always like responded to when I say that with what's like they had no idea. It's insane. I mean, and those are clinicians.
I'm surprised by this, and the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm not surprised by it. And is this? Do you think? And I assume that none of us know the actual answer to this, but do you think that this has something to do with like the anonymous programs, with Alcoholics Anonymous, with Narcotics Anonymous, all that kind of stuff? Because in those programs that have been looked at as like, here's the main thing that many people do. Most people who go into addiction treatment or whatever, they're doing it through one of these 12-step anonymous programs that are very often not led by a professional of any kind. They're just led by a volunteer in a church basement.
Sure. Or not led at all.
Of course. I mean, do you think this is kind of an offshoot, an unintentional consequence of that being kind of the norm for so long?
Yeah, I should do a whole deep dive.
We can also just punt and say this is going to be a deep dive.
Yeah, because here's kind of the short answer to that. Yes, the thing that makes substance use treatment different than mental health treatment is its background, how it started, its roots. Substance use was very much grassroots, like what you're talking about.
It started
a lot of church basements.
Yeah, and for the longest time, and this has always been, I think, one of the biggest obstacles for substance use treatment, is because there's so many things that we do. We now understand, because we know more about the brain, we understand what addiction is, like to a level that we've never understood it before. And we also understand how closely it is to anxiety, depression, and all these other mental health issues. But for whatever reason, I think because we're stuck in this old way of thinking, we treat substance use in a way that we would never treat any other condition.
Right.
And it doesn't make any sense. Case in point, I used to have clinicians that would say, like, a client came to group and, they're drunk. So we need to kick them out of treatment.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, what other disorder would you do that?
Right.
Yeah.
Because...
Are you feeling anxious right now?
Yeah.
Can't be here, buddy.
So like, the inability to control...
You're here for your cancer treatment. Yeah. You're telling me that you broke your arm too?
Well, no.
Get the fuck out.
Not only that, but like... the inability to control the behavior is a symptom of the disorder.
Disease,
So in what other disorder would we remove somebody for treatment for displaying the symptoms of the condition that we're trying? So like if we were doing a PTSD group and somebody started having flashbacks of trauma, we wouldn't be like, oh, no, this is inappropriate. You can't do that here. you need to leave.
Or like a person who's dealing with diabetes. Oh, you ate sugar, or you didn't follow your diet. Like, well, you can't get any more treatment.
Yeah. So it's like there's so many things that substance use, and I do think it's because it was rooted in the 12 steps. And I don't want to rip on the 12 steps too much because they're useful in a lot of ways.
Hugely useful.
But it wasn't clinically based.
Yeah, it was always an amateur.
And so it's very difficult to move this field into a more clinical way of thinking.
Yeah, because it started there.
And part of this too, this is actually one of the thoughts that I had too with this, is here we could have a therapist who has a personal experience with substance use.
They sound like an old schooler, don't they?
It does. It really sounds like somebody who I've worked with before.
A dinosaur.
Who has like, okay, well, anything other than abstinence is a problem.
Yeah.
So, you're using
their patient, man.
Yeah, and so like I've got a lot of counselors who may be in that situation where they experience that and like, so you told me that you're using marijuana. And no matter how hard you try to direct them into, yes, but I'm here for this other thing, they can't let that go because it's like, well, this is the root of all of the problems.
Yeah.
So,
which is an amateur approach.
It is.
So like to other professionals, because the writer just tells us the story and then just says, what do you think about this? And I think we're all giving you, feedback on how we think about it. One thing I just want to speak to for students, interns, colleagues that are out there, don't do what this therapist did, but let's talk about what they did wrong. Let's talk about what you should do better. So is this therapist correct in looking at this patient the way we've heard this description and saying to themselves, sounds like this person uses an awful lot of marijuana and they're probably coping with it. And I think that's a big part of their life that we need to at some point consider. Sure, fine.
I would answer like a solid maybe.
Yeah, it's in the back of my head. Yeah. If you tell me self-described, I find that I'm dependent on this to function in daily life. In the back of my mind, I'm saying, that's interesting. Yeah, we're going to get to that. But when you say that, so if Nick's the patient and I say, so Nick, what brings you here? And he says, oh, there's all these other things going on. And I say, great, let's learn more about your life. Where'd you grow up? What's going on? Tell me, do you use any medicines? Do you use any drugs? Oh, yeah, I use marijuana. Okay, how often? Throughout the day.
I'm pretty dependent on it.
Yeah, high octane, all day long. I'm vaping it.
Also, if I hear someone say I'm dependent on this.
Sure, I take you at your word.
I take you at your word, but also I assume kind of that do you want to not be dependent on it?
Right. You seem to be using a word that you know what you're saying. Right. And so, okay, great.
So now I'm taking that, I would take that as a goal.
Right.
Just my layman brain, I would say that a goal is to get rid of the marijuana. Perhaps I'm going to get rid of it by just saying,
I'll let you define that. I'll let you tell me if it's a goal. But if Nick were telling me, yeah, I smoke all day long, it's all, I use it all the time, I'm quite dependent on it. At that point, I'm going to say, great. Do you see it as a challenge in your life, or do you feel like it's more of a medicine? And the writer says, well, I have a medicinal card. Right now it's a medicine. And I'll say, great. My next question is, so what are you medicating in your life with this marijuana?
Yeah.
Well, Jim, anxiety, these other things. But honestly, I can't sit still without it. Like, I mean, it's just kind of like all the time. Okay, so just kind of like the angst of life. Like you feel really unsettled and restless without it. Yeah. Okay, and all I'm going to do is just log that in the back of my head, and now we're going to move the fuck on.
Yeah.
Here's why, and this is where I want students listening to this. Go look up the trans-theoretical model of change, or go into Nick's Patreons, and he has an entire deep dive into the stages of change, the trans-theoretical model, TTM.
And if you can't sit through that entire Patreon, then check out Jim's Patreon on ADHD.
Hours. Nick's are lovingly gift-wrapped as 20-minute little things.
You
got to earn my fucking information.
I want them to wrap it up by the time they get to their job.
That's it.
It's a car ride.
Yeah. If you look through our Patreons, Nick's are tidy under 30-minute deliveries of just the facts. Mine are meandering walkthroughs that are 90 minutes minimum.
It's an 8-part college lecture.
Yeah. You will find the facts in there somewhere, but you will earn it. Anyway, this model is not just for addictions. It is for everything, but it is so important in this case. The mistake this therapist made is that maybe the patient does have a problem. Okay? Play along with me, writer. Maybe you do have a problem. Maybe it is a factor. Maybe all of your mental health things would over time improve if we stopped self-medicating with something that isn't helping all the time for every single thing that you have. Maybe. Was it appropriate for this therapist to jump at it right now? No, you're not there.
Yeah.
Because when we asked you, hey, what is this to you? And you said, it's a medicine I'm dependent on. Even if we agree later on in your life in the future that this was actually a problem the whole time, you're in a stage that we call pre-contemplation.
I mean, I would even argue possibly contemplation.
Maybe they're starting to talk about it, but they went back into pre-contemplation as soon as the therapist challenged it.
Yes, but they could also just be like, yes, this is probably a problem, but it's not a problem right now.
I'm not going to address it.
I'm not going to do anything about it.
So pre-contemplation is, I have no awareness whatsoever. Contemplation is, I'm aware, but we're not going to be doing anything about this, and I'm not even really thinking about doing anything.
That's not the problem I want to address right now.
And that's exactly right. And this is where I don't like where the therapist went, because A, if your patient is in pre-contemplation or contemplation, what this therapist did is exactly the wrong move. And this is why Nick and I both kind of have a hunch that maybe the therapist comes from Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous, because there is a certain culture among maybe the older generation in what we call the rooms, that latches onto this kind of shit and doesn't let it go and obsesses over it.
Yeah.
Whereas a more balanced approach that's based on good science would say, great, we'll talk about this more later. And then look for an opportunity to broaden your awareness. And this is going to come down the road when the therapeutic relationship is strong and we've really gathered some ground. And then I'm going to say, so Whitney, tell me again when you noticed that you were anxious. Well, Jim, I kind of woke up really anxious. And it wasn't until I took a hit of my vape pen that I calmed down. Interesting. When did you feel anxious again? About 3.5 hours later, when I noticed that the marijuana was wearing off. So I took another hit of my vape pen. Interesting. When did you feel anxious again? And now we're going to start saying, did you know one of the withdrawal symptoms of cannabis is actually higher anxiety? That's weird. Do you ever notice that? Yeah, sometimes I guess I do. Interesting. Now we're starting to discuss it in a friendly way that could lead to change.
Because even if, hypothetically, let's just say the therapist was right on their hunch that all of these problems stem from the cannabis use. I think that's a little bit of a stretch from what we know, but let's just say that's the case.
Too big of a jump.
Let's say that's the case.
Sure.
He still would approach it differently than the way that he did.
Yeah.
What Jim is doing there is that is how you approach contemplation.
Right.
If someone's in contemplation, then your goals are all about exploration.
That's it.
It's about discovery.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
You have a problem.
Yeah.
You need to stop.
Just out the gate.
So
Jeez.
the Dr. Mealy, who's the chief editor of ASAM Criteria.
It's pronounced melee.
It's not.
I believe it's pronounced
the
doctor.
thing that he said that was really important. So any future therapists out there listening, everybody that you work with is in the preparation stage of change for something.
Right.
So your job is to figure out what that something is, and you meet the client there.
Yep.
So for example, our rider may not be in the preparation stage of change for dealing with the marijuana use,
right,
but maybe in the preparation stage of change for finding some way to cope in a healthy way with the issues that she's self-medicating with.
There you go.
So that's where you start. Right. And then Ellie, if this is a problem, we'll figure it out as you continue to work from that point.
If I am concerned for Ellie's marijuana use, first off, I'm not bringing that shit up in the first several sessions because right now,
sneaky.
Yeah, I very sneaky.
You got to get your teeth
not
in there.
bringing that shit up because clearly that's not helpful. But if I am concerned, how I'm going to bring it up is I'm going to say, Ellie, I really wish we could do better with your anxiety so you didn't have to self-medicate that. Mm-hmm. If I can help your anxiety come down 25%, can we decrease the marijuana use about 25% to see what happens? Because I really want to see if there's a difference. But if we're masking everything with the marijuana, I won't even know if we're making any progress on this. How do you feel about that? Now, if we have a good relationship and we've made some progress, Ellie might be like, Jim, that's fine. That's not an unreasonable request, man. I don't feel like you're calling me names. I don't feel like you're saying it's a problem.
It's also coming from a place of curiosity.
And it makes perfect sense.
The number one thing.
If
and
I said,
they come back,
you're taking ibuprofen for your leg pain, we've been doing physical therapy, you should have less leg pain, but we don't know because you're always on ibuprofen. How do you feel about cutting back a little bit so we can run an experiment?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's do it.
And part of that experiment is if they come back and say, I just couldn't do it, I couldn't cut back, then
Let's
it
talk.
still opens up, another conversation.
So that's data.
Was it because of the anxiety?
You've got
no,
more
I just
data.
really needed it. Okay, let's talk more about that.
I have a question. Because I know how Nick would approach this from working together before. If somebody came into session under the influence of alcohol. That, from what I remember, it was like, okay, well, unless you just won't leave, we're not going to have a session. Like, that's not an ideal situation. How do you feel, or what is your perspective, Jim or Nick, about somebody using cannabis or marijuana like that?
It happened. So ever since Nevada legalized it in 2017,
Nevada, you can buy it recreationally. Anybody who comes here, if you visit Nevada, you can just go into a dispensary.
No medical card, as long as you're, 21?
Yeah,
21 up. So ever since then, it's become extremely common.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's really obvious. Most of the time it's not.
Yeah.
And most of the time they'll just casually mention at some point, I smoked earlier today. And I'll realize, oh, you smoke on therapy day. Like, you'll smoke before you see me. I don't care, generally speaking. So like what Nick was talking about earlier about, even though I don't think a lot of the times the marijuana or whatever is not what we're treating, it's just something that's happening in the background. And I see it as a medicine, but a medicine that's not effective most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, if you're taking one thing to address 10 things, that's probably not the best medicine, right? There's a lot of people that say, I treat my anxiety with alcohol. It's like, there's better medicines for that. I want to get something more efficient. So the way I think about it whenever somebody shows up doing that is this inhibiting their ability to cognate? Like, can they discuss with me what's really going on? How's their perception? Are they following? Oh. If they're so loaded that, like, their cognitive level is greatly diminished, I will not kick them out of session. My first move is to drop to their cognitive level. Like, they're just basically a learning disordered person for a little while, and we're going to just follow them where they're at, and I'm going to try to make the best use of the session as I can. I'm also going to really focus on relationship. Because toward the end of the session, especially if they're really loaded and like this is a distraction because I don't think they're getting, good, proper care right now, but I'm doing the best I can. At the end of that, I'm going to try to lean in on relationship. That way I can say, Whitney, can I ask for a favor?
Yeah.
Next time around.
Oh, you are bad at that.
Next time around.
I don't smoke.
I'd like to.
Can you tell?
No shit.
I'd like to ask,
very bad experiences.
Can you not smoke on the day of? It would mean a lot to me because I really have some cool ideas, but I also don't want to overwhelm you. And I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. And usually they're like, yeah, man, that's cool. As long as you're not disrespectful, they're like, I get it. Like, yeah, for sure, man. And like, I'm a big fan of that because there's a lot of people that are really touchy. And they're like, oh no, if you've had any alcohol today, I will not be treating it. It's like, look, dude, we're healthcare providers. Calm the fuck down. Yeah. Like, people stumble their ass into emergency rooms with gunshot wounds. You can be like, excuse me, sir, you have not bandaged your wound properly today. Is that alcohol I smell in your breath?
I was going to say, you could just do the same thing. You can just say alcohol.
Are you drunk?
So,
yeah, treat the fucking
answer
problem.
In the emergency room is usually yes.
Yeah,
yes, they are drunk.
Of course I'm drunk. So are you. It's the emergency room. There were shots next to the lemon water.
So my answer to that is maybe a little bit different because as an LCADC or LADC, licensed alcohol and drug counselor, that is the condition I'm treating.
Right.
So
you're in the right place. We're good.
Okay.
So I wouldn't necessarily. I've done this both ways, where someone has come in intoxicated, and I'm like, okay, we can't do the session.
Yeah.
Right.
We're going to cancel, or we're going to reschedule, or whatever. But then there's also been times where I've done that session, and it really depends on, well, number one, the first thing I always assess is safety.
Yeah.
So are we even safe to continue the session?
Right.
Yeah.
If so, then we can move forward with the next decision, which is it going to be therapeutically beneficial?
Right.
And a lot of that has to do with my relationship with that person and how intoxicated they are.
Yes.
So I've had some clients that were just so intoxicated that like, okay, no, we probably just we're going to get you someplace safe and
get some
we'll
water.
Talk later.
You're going to sit in my lobby and I'll check on you in 2 hours.
Otherwise, there's been others where like I've had some good sessions because like, oh, they actually opened up.
Yeah.
You know, they were willing to talk.
Vino Veritas.
Yeah.
Well, also, we've run inpatient programs, and on admission day, everybody's high.
Yeah.
Everybody's drunk. And so, like, we know we're going to do a whole nother intake later.
Yeah.
Whatever we talk about today, you won't remember. So we're going to have phase one, which is, hi, welcome to the rehab. So what's going on? I'm drunk, man. Cool. Yeah. Like, let's get you to a bed, buddy. Yeah. But we're going to go through some basics.
You can learn a lot.
Yes, you can ask some good questions when they're loaded.
I mean, there's been, I remember one client that we had where we met with him and his wife, and he was 3 sheets to the wind. And I remember even like having a conversation with you, like, I don't think we're fucking safe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, this guy is fucking dangerous.
Yeah.
And
it was Jacob.
It was Jacob. We started a podcast with him. It was fine.
Once he sobered up, he was an audio engineer. We're like, no. So, but then
you're on absinthe. I don't get it. You're right now. You're using absinthe
after he sobered up. He was the nicest guy ever.
Nicest guy.
But like that was a great learning experience where we get to see like what his family has to deal with,
right,
when he's under the influence, and that was very helpful for later on treating him. But anyway,
yeah, I had someone recently who the first session we were going through the intake, and you don't know a baseline then, right?
Right.
So then towards the end when we were going over substance use, they had mentioned it, and I was like, then I got the vibe after they mentioned their use. I was like, I have a feeling that
every once in a while you get a Johnny Depp, and you're just like, are you? No, this is. I don't want to be offensive. You're just fun. Like maybe this is just you're just kind of this way, and then you're like, no, you're hot. No, I've had some of those. Like 60 tricky. Minutes in, I'm like, I have no clue.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, let's wait to session 2 and find out if you're like this again.
That's why it's always good to employ a guy like Junior. Where you can just like, Junior, can you come to my office?
Tell me if this guy's high.
Yep, he can just look.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, he just knows. But just real quick, if you're interested in this topic, please check out my deep dive from this week. I did a deep dive I interviewed my coworker, Amanda.
Oh, yeah.
And we talked about medication-assisted treatment.
Yeah.
For opioid use disorder.
Cool.
Very, very good conversation.
Yeah.
So please check that out.
Yeah. Always available at patreon.com/therapy. We release new content every Monday, and it's a little bit more clinical in nature most of the time, a little bit more academic. And so, again, bite-sized for your commute if it's Nick's week. Definitely not if it's my week. I'm more of your lunch break. I think I'm that
for
guy.
a few days.
Family style.
Yeah, I might be family style. Or just dinner with family if you just want to get out of Thanksgiving and just listen to me all day. That's a great ADHD deep dive day. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the complications of being isolated. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Jake Schneider, Judy Schneider, Leon Kassab, Carolyn Albert, Sammy Scoop, Sarah Smith, Mike Helm, Darren Cunningham, Matt and Lisa Tangeman, and Mrs. Hot Dog Scoop. And if you want to become a therapy producer, head on over to patreon.com/therapy and sign up. All right, next 2 questions. Freud was born in Freiburg, Moravia, currently Czech Republic.
True.
But moved with his family to Vienna in 1860. He lived and practiced psychotherapy at Burggrass 19 for 47 years before fleeing the Nazis and moving to London, where he lived for 9 months before passing away.
Oh, wow.
How long in total did Freud live in Vienna? Oh, is this math?
Oh, shit.
No.
Train A leaves.
Can you repeat the Vienna part of the question?
Okay, he moved with his family to Vienna in 1860. He lived and practiced psychotherapy at Burggrass 19, I'm not sure what that is, for 47 years before fleeing the Nazis and moving to London. I'm going to say 47 years.
47 years?
Is that Burggrass is the same place as the Freebird place?
I don't know.
I mean, is that in Vienna?
All right, I'm definitely waiting to options.
Yeah.
I'm going to take options on this one.
I'm going 47
Fuck it,
years.
I'm going 47.
Wow. I hope
Okay,
you
Jacob,
both
we're fucked.
deeply
65 years, 72 years, 77, or 81 years.
Oh my
They're
god.
some big numbers.
I don't understand how this question works at all.
I don't either.
He was a
The
time
math ain't
traveler.
mathin'.
He lived and practiced
The
psychotherapy
surgeon was the boy's mother.
for 47 years before fleeing the Nazis and moving to London.
I don't know. What are our options again? We're just going to pick numbers.
65, 72, 77, or 81.
All right, ladies' choice. I'll take whatever's left over.
A 65.
I'll take B.
And you're all wrong.
God
What?
damn it.
77 years. Sigmund
Freud. Wah,
and
wah.
Martha Freud's
We're not doing
bedroom
great
had
at
4 doors. I'm not going to repeat this question, so shut the fuck
Oh,
up.
this is the question. I thought
Two
this was just more
swings.
info.
I thought you were just
I
talking
was
about
too.
Sigmund
I
Freud.
was like,
No.
oh. okay.
Moving on.
All right.
Sigmund and Martha Freud's bedroom had 4 doors to different rooms: entrance hall, men's salon, bathroom, and another bedroom.
Wow.
The only room without another exit was the bedroom, which belonged to a female family member.
Yeah.
Who was his female family member?
Freud's mom.
Yeah, it's gotta be. I'm going to go 2 points.
Neat.
Freud's mom.
Absolutely had a adjacent room to Sigmund's bed.
And she had to walk through his bedroom to get in or out of her bedroom.
Yes. There's no doubt.
I'm saying mom. You're saying
Easily
mom.
it's mom.
I'm going niece.
Okay.
I don't know.
Throws that
Left
an
field.
audible.
Left field.
Jacob?
Oh, mom.
It's mom.
Okay. Okay. Martha's sister, Minna.
That was the answer?
I almost said
Yep.
sister, but it wouldn't have been Martha's. Well, that's kind of kinky.
Sister-in-law? All right.
Yeah, sister-in-law.
All right.
Sigmund's mom. Whoa, whoa. The complications of being isolated by plebeian J.
Oh my gosh, Jim's wearing his Crocs. I just noticed
I
that.
am, girl.
Sorry.
Oh, I didn't see them
Hey,
because they're
oh
camouflage.
my gosh.
Excuse me, eyes up here, okay?
The fake Crocs. Sorry.
They're camouflage. I
Eyes
can't
up
see them, Jim.
Here.
I just-
I'm up here.
I just see legs. I don't see any feet.
I'm
Okay,
all
I'm
legs.
sorry,
I got
gosh.
these long dancer's legs.
I knew there was some reason I wasn't getting a boner.
these long dancers.
Like you usually do?
Yeah, it's
When we
weird.
record?
Yeah, so weird.
So weird.
Just limp as a noodle.
These
The
fucking
complications of being isolated by plebeian J. Also, I played Rocket League with plebeian J the other day. Plebeian J is stupid good at this game. I am nothing compared to him.
Crocs. Speaking of boners.
Hey, gang. I'm currently listening to episode 304's question about the creepy parents making
Crappy.
Crappy.
Thank you. Making support
different.
a transaction. Y'all made a few jokes about the writer's cats being there to eat them when a therapist / pets are the only support remaining. I had a good laugh, but this is actually something I've been brewing up a question about in the back of my mind.
I like that the writer very kindly put, y'all made jokes
Yeah,
about that.
It was clearly,
We
I know
all
that
didn't.
was Jacob.
We all didn't.
I don't even remember the question.
I don't
You
either.
weren't here.
Jacob
It was
100%
just the three
said
of
that.
us.
Oh, it
Because I was
was.
sitting in Jim's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're
I wasn't
right.
even
Yeah, I don't
part
remember
of
that
it.
at all.
Yeah.
feels
I'm
right.
positive, though, that I was the one making those
Definitely
jokes.
Jacob. About a decade ago, I moved 1,000 miles out of state and cut contact with my family. The SparkNotes version of it was bad parents, sporadic homelessness as a kid, hiding money, and having some survivor's guilt for my younger siblings once I paid my way out of there. That's all 10 years in the past, but informed a lot of my personality now as this hyper-independent introvert with no real desire for close relationships. I'm also a straight-edge nerd, largely in reaction to growing up around addiction, so the social currency of alcohol never really factored in. I had friends of convenience in college, but once out of school, everyone scattered and never felt the need to keep in touch. I don't feel bad about being solitary, never really feel lonely or like I'm missing or need anyone. This independence comes with its own little issues, though, that I just wanted to pick your brains about. Issues like preventing being found half-eaten by my cat by some poor routine apartment inspector, or the awkward struggle of my work's HR telling me I have free life insurance but haven't put a benefactor on the form. Before Jacob asks, no, but maybe, I'll need more details.
Okay.
I think he's assuming that you're going to ask to be the benefactor.
I was going to suggest the show, but sure.
That's fine. Yeah. Oh, obviously send money to the show. I think
Yeah.
we should be the benefactor of the life trip. We'll put it to good trips for Jim. Is 911 a valid emergency contact to leave in my if found paper in my wallet? Is there an app or something where I can just press an attendance button every few days, or else they send a welfare check? I haven't gotten any health problems, but I still
Oh,
feel
that has to exist,
that
right?
has to be a thing.
Yeah.
But I still feel bad thinking about my cat being stuck with my soft tissues, hoping my neighbors catch the smell before I mummify after a freak brain aneurysm.
Oh, that's a great visual.
There's a few online communities I socialize in that would notice my absence, but those are all through usernames, and I don't see how they do a welfare check because I stopped showing up to steal memes. So, any ideas? Thanks, Plebeian J. Pronouns are he and him.
Oh, man.
Okay.
This is a good question.
And I'm glad that they're looking at it with a little bit of mirth.
Yeah, for sure. There's a good Plebe J's awesome.
Yeah.
We've hung out online, really fun.
Have any of y'all ever been at
Eaten
home
by a cat.
alone and like you think you're choking or something? Like
Oh.
you're eating, you're like, this is it.
Oh, Whitney.
Yeah.
Whitney. Not only do I think that consistently, I train for it.
Yeah, you should.
You should.
Yes.
I've watched videos and practiced how to do self-CPR on a piece of furniture in case I start choking.
That's not CPR.
Well, whatever.
Heimlich.
I can save my own life.
I thought you meant you have trained for the possibility of you dying alone.
Well, you can't prepare for
How
that.
are you training?
No. I'm prepared to save my own life in case I start choking. Because it fucking happened. I had a Jolly Rancher in my mouth, and I was coughing, and I was like, and I went to like gasp in air.
Terrifying.
Yep.
Terrifying.
Right in the bronchial tube. And I was like, oh, I'm dead now. Like, it was one of those moments where I realized there is nothing I can do about this. I cannot make this come out. I will now be dead. Like, this is 100% what's going to happen. I can go as far as I can run before I pass out. I can't speak, so I can't make noise.
Right.
I can call 911 and
You
like
do the
click into the
choking.
phone, but there wasn't another person.
Yeah. Your neighbor?
No, I was home alone. I was like homesick or something like that. Everybody's gone. And so like I realized I can call 911. Like my life flashed before my eyes. And ultimately how I got it out was dropping onto the corner of a piece of furniture and it just popped out. That's how you save your life, by the way. You're meant to drop your diaphragm onto the edge of a furniture piece that's strong. Yeah. And because you don't want it to just crack underneath you and then you're just dying on the floor.
And if you have inflatable furniture, you're just fucked.
You're fucked.
Yeah.
If you have beanbags and shit, this is how you die. But anyway.
This is why hippies are bad.
Yeah, hippies mostly die of choking.
So it's funny because I actually, on Instagram, you get all these commercials for shit that pops up.
Yeah.
I buy them.
You buy Instagram ad stuff?
I've bought 2 so far.
You're one of them.
You're feeding the bear, man. They just keep sending them.
One of them is this little like tool that like gets pet hair off of furniture.
Okay.
Actually works pretty good.
Oh, it's like a little
pretty
brush
useful.
thingy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't really
Is
use
it the one that has like a little roller
but
thing in the middle of it?
No. It's like metal.
It's like
It's
a little
like a metal
cone.
thing. It's got like
Great.
little tiny little teeth.
Yeah.
Oh,
I have one of
alright.
those, but not from Instagram.
Works really good. The second thing was one of these deals for like choking. So it's this little mask that it goes over your nose and over your
I've
mouth.
seen this.
And you push in.
It's a plunger.
You push in and it squeezes
I
air out
have
the
seen
side.
these, and I was
then
like,
you
is
pull
this
out.
bullshit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you try it?
It is
bought
a plunger.
that?
I bought
Start
that.
choking.
It's just a plunger.
It's
It
a
is.
plunger.
It is a
I
mouth
want one.
plunger.
I want one.
And I got it because
Their
I was
pal,
thinking
send
like,
me one.
if I was ever choking,
Yes.
Laura is no help whatsoever.
Because she's probably the one choking you.
Because she hates you.
Yeah, because her hands are around your throat at that time.
You don't think
My
she
favorite
would
game,
do the
my-
Heimlich maneuver?
She can't.
Bet
She's
you'll
too
make
small.
the bed next time, won't you, you
She's
son
too
of a
little-
bitch?
No, but my favorite game to play with her is like
I'm choking.
What's on the top shelf?
Just like no, just like
Ouch, ouch, you're
if
on
we're
my
like
hair.
if we're like laying down like on the sofa or whatever, I'll just be like, okay, dead weight drill, and I just lay there.
Lay on her.
And she has to try to fight. She has to try to like wiggle her way out. She can't do it.
If I ever die while making love to you,
absolutely-
I want to know that you'll be okay.
Yeah,
We're going to practice.
training. Yeah,
Next
we're
time,
training for this.
next time I see Laura, I'm just going to walk up to her, I'm going to give her a
Dead
hug,
weight.
and while I'm hugging her, I'm just going to whisper in her
Slowly.
ear, dead weight drill.
Yeah, just do it.
To the floor. God damn it, Jacob. This is why we don't visit.
I have actually performed the Heimlich maneuver on Peter just within the last like 2 years. For the first time, he was eating steak, and he was in the process of like Invisalign, so his teeth were moving.
Oh, right.
So he couldn't like grind food the same way.
Oh, yeah.
So he's eating steak, and you're used to eating certain bite size. But anyway, so he was trying to swallow, and all of a sudden we're at dinner with my cousin, her family. We were in Mexico.
See, it's a murder place. It's
We
so
were in
unsafe.
Mexico at a resort, and like
They
all of a
cut their
sudden
steak way
it's
too
like
thick.
crazy. He just like freezes, and I look over. I was like, "Are you okay?" And he just like shakes his head. I was
Oh.
like, "Oh my god!" I just like threw my chair back.
Wow.
I got behind him. I was like, "It is. It's the hardest thing." You're
She
so like
leapt.
adrenaline.
Immediately started pegging him.
I was like, gave him like 3 of the little like
Worked though, didn't it?
pumps or whatever, and then I thought it didn't work because nothing was happening. And then I was really freaking the f out. I'm like, "Oh my god,
Yeah.
he's like gonna die right now."
Jesus.
And everyone at the tables just stopped staring. I think you just are in shock or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
I don't know. So I went to get a chair up because I was going to have him do that. I was like, just put a chair up and like let him do his own Heimlich maneuver. Yeah. But then it came out like right after I did the third one, and he's like, I was like, you owe me your life now.
That is so
yeah, like, damn right.
It is. He went that whole rest of the night. He's like, I just got to go back to the room and lay there and like think about life. No.
Wow,
it's terrifying. Yeah. But then after that, anytime I'm alone, I'm like.
I know.
Like, what if
we all need these sucker things. I want one.
I was too nervous to actually. So, like, I put it up to my face. Yeah. And I was going to do it, but then I was like,
"It's going to pull up your esophagus or something." That's a one-time use device.
Yeah, I'm just going to have to trust it.
So, but here's the thing: body parts have you put into it?
I was already watching about.
Yeah, this is just a penis enlarger, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if I have one of those, would that do this?
Let's just hope
not just one.
Let's just hope none of my guests have to use it.
Yeah. Are you joking? Are you
really joking?
Really joking?
Because I've got this thing you could use, but you're gonna have terrible breath.
Do you have
afterwards.
a black light?
Yeah.
No, oh my gosh.
But I was worried though, like, you know, having facial hair, like how well it's
is it gonna suction off?
Yeah. So then I bought this emergency shaving kit. So if I'm choking, shave me real quick.
Yeah, that's right.
Gosh, so how do you prevent your animals from eating you?
This is a really good question, though, because I do think that in the reality we live in now, there's an awful lot of people that A, live alone, and B, they socialize online, and that is intermittent. You're not expected anywhere. You pop in and out. And, like, yeah, this is a really good question. I mean, like, for a lot of people, if you don't have a family member or roommate or something to that effect, PB&J brings up some suggestions of, like, is there like an app like I'm supposed to touch every couple of days and it lets you know? I mean, sadly, at a program that Nick and I once ran, we had, it was a halfway house and people mostly did have roommates. But what would happen is the further along they got in the program and the longer they had been sober and healthy and were managing their mental health, the less often we would check on them. And that was because we wanted to encourage independence and we didn't want to baby them. We wanted them to go get jobs and kind of get their own lives. And I had a situation where a guy who I really loved, he was just a really fantastic human being. He's everybody's favorite guy. He's just so sweet. And yeah, it had been like over a week since I had last seen him. And they usually pop into our office to get medicines. But he was one of the people that had earned the right to like bring a little container and we would load him up with medicines for the week. And so I was waiting to see him, and I hadn't seen him in a week, and I didn't think much of it because sometimes people are just busy. They're working new jobs and learning time management. And a few more days had gone by, and finally a neighbor that lived next to him came to our office and said there was a stench coming from his building. So we went in there, and he had passed a while back. And so that was a moment where we realized, like, wow, he didn't have a roommate. And again, he was one of the people who didn't have a roommate, which was something in our program you had to, that was rare first off. But if you were afforded that is because we really trusted you. Because we could trust you to not even have a peer that was watching over you. And he didn't die of overdose or anything like that. It was probably natural causes. It didn't seem like any, malfeasance. But yeah, it just goes to show that we had given him all this time and space, weren't checking on him, and he passed, And I guess, PB&J, it's a really tough thing because on one hand, I guess the dark, comforting thought I would give you is, don't worry, it's not your problem.
I was just thinking that too. I was like, why does
it was my problem. I figured it out eventually, and we took care of everything from there. But the other thing of like, I do like this other point of how does one stay safe? Like if you could choke, like I do feel like there needs, but if you have a check-in buddy or something like that, a friend that you just touch base with every 3 days and just say, hey, let's just make an agreement that you and I text each other every 3 days. You live alone, I live alone. Let's check in. I could see the value of that, kind of. Because if I die on day one and then 2 days later I don't check in and then you reach out, like, okay, great, you're the first person to figure out I died. Somebody else would have eventually figured it out.
Yeah.
It's a weird situation, PB&J. I mean, it's a dark one. But
I mean, the thing that I was thinking wasn't necessarily even all of these concerns, but just like, it's perfectly fine if you're just happier by yourself and you don't really require that interaction with other people. My concern was more along the lines of like, so what happens when you have to interact with other people? Like, does your solitary lifestyle or preferences, does that make it difficult to interact with people when you have to. Right. Thinking like work relationships or
the Heimlich maneuver.
Yeah.
Somebody's trying to save you and you're like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Anyway.
Yeah. No, that is a good point. It makes me wonder, is that fulfilling enough? I mean, you sound pretty content being
and if it's
own,
not if it's not a problem, it's not a problem.
But there is actually a very clear solution to this. So like obviously the point about death and your cat's not eating you, I don't have a solution for that. Like if you suddenly die and there's not another human nearby, we're just not going to solve that. Like there's no solution.
Cats are going to cat.
Cat's going to cat.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way it is. Land on the cat, it won't be a problem. But Life Alert.
Train your cat to ring a bell. No,
just kidding. A dinner bell. You know, but Life Alert. So there are a lot of people that are older that do have this system. The systems exist where they wear a necklace, and if they were ever in some kind of medical emergency or danger, they can just rip the cord, and it talks to an app on their phone. The phone already knows the address. It will automatically unlock location and all that other stuff. Call 911. And start a process that ultimately should lead to somebody trying to save you.
Yeah.
This exists. And so in today's technology day and age, there are apps like that. There are systems like that, like Life Alert and medical bracelets and things like that. And look, friend, if you do live alone and this is something we were like, oh man, what if I'm ever in danger? I don't think that's an irresponsible thing to do. I think that would be proper.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
That would at least greatly reduce the chances of your cats eating you in your apartment.
And really with the cats, you want to get one of those self-feeding dish bowls. Yeah, the dispenser. Because that's going to last a while. If you keep it topped off, which you should, don't just wait. Yeah. Keep it topped off. That thing will run for like a week. Yeah, and I just feel like, neighbors, somebody's going to pick up the scent before that, so just keep that thing. Now, water's the real problem. So you want to leave your toilet lids open in case Kitty needs to get in there.
Yeah.
Or just always keep the bathtub full.
Always keep the bathtub full is always, also a good idea.
Then they'll fall in it.
Yeah. This is why people tune into the show.
Yeah. Yep.
Plebe and Jay, glad to have you in the community. Loved hanging out with you in the Discord. Always love it whenever you play Rocket League in the lounge, and I always enjoy watching you jam because you are way better than me. And that gives me something to aspire to. As we wrap up the show, we want to remind you that if you sign up at patreon.com/therapy, you can get the extended show ad-free a day earlier and enjoy our live chat Discord community and our weekly deep dives, interviews, skill shares, research roundups, and rants. Check it out. It's at patreon.com/therapy. And we've got some new friends to welcome to the bunch. Who's joining the crew here?
We got a new therapal named Sam. Welcome, Sam.
Welcome, Sam. And as we wrap up the show, we want to thank our partners, Dirty B, Myra, and Pickett. And thank you, Myra, for that wonderful Freud trivia. Really missed an opportunity here to call it Family Freud, though. Feel like that was just right there. There. And we want to thank our bosses, the mysterious and shrouded Illuminati members of the fan club, the Ther producers. Thank you, Jake Schneider, Robert Brownie Jr. Mint, Smitty Scoop, Ben Dawn, Judy Schneider, Kayla Lansbury, Mrs. and Mr. Hot Dog Scoop, Malia, Leon Kassab, Mason Miller, Richard Macy, Carolyn Albert, Kevin Chamberlain, Tess Miller, Sammy Scoop, Ben Stanley Slappin' Ya Face, Sarah Smith, Adam Hathaway, Byler T, University Jeff, Mike Helm, Paris, Samantha Cohn, Darren Cunningham, Lib, Team Monaco, Thunder, Cougar, Falcon Scoop, Matt and Lisa Tangeman, Heyo, Oscar Swanrose, A Sunny Boy, Slurpy Kaye, motherfucker, Sandra McWaffle, Dan Martin, and Hannah Marie.
And if you'd like to hear this episode uncut and unedited,
and why wouldn't you?
There it
and
is.
Enjoy our spontaneous side projects.
Sharing the joy.
Go to patreon.com/therapy, and thank you for supporting mental health.
That's all the time we got for this week's session. I want to thank our landlords, Matt Mattingly's Ice Cream Social Podcast, and thanks to those of you who contributed to our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, Pod Therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Share the episode with the world. Tag us on the socials when you do. It's at PodTherapyGuys on Instagram and Twitter/X, and it's /PodTherapy on Facebook. Don't forget about all the extra goodies at patreon.com/therapy.
And if you want to submit a question
and
to the
why
show,
wouldn't you?
I knew he was going to do that.
Ask anonymously at
I literally think that when
podtherapy.net.
he says that every time,
Or
too.
email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm staying in Vegas.
I'm Whitney.
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.